Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Trickstar Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for post the May 2022 ban list. With this latest ban list, we actually had Trickstar Light Stage brought back to 2 off of the list, strengthening the Trickstar deck, definitely, since it was a very important part of the playstyle of the Trickstar deck. I also decided to focus more on a meta-relevant Trickstar deck. The last couple deck profiles I've supported have been more of the Link options, focusing on a good majority of the Link monsters for the many different Trickstar plays, including the fusion play. But for this deck, we'll be looking more for the burn damage that you can do to your opponent, and also just the hand disruption with cards like Trickstar Reincarnation and Trickstar Licorice. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the Trickstar monsters, one of the best monsters in the deck is Trickstar Candina, just for its search power. When it's normal summon, you can add one Trickstar card from your deck to your hand. Each time your opponent activates a spell or trap card, inflict 200 damage to them immediately after it resolves. So you have burn damage with this card, but the main play with Candina is just to add a Trickstar card from your deck to your hand, with one of those cards being your Trickstar Light Stage, which when this card is activated, you can add Trickstar Monster, adding the next Trickstar Monster, which is your Trickstar Licorice, running 3 copies of this card as well. Quick effect, you can reveal this card in your hand, target one Trickstar monster you control except for Trickstar Licorice. Special summon this card. If you do, return that monster to the hand. Each time a card is added to your opponent's hand, inflict 200 damage to them for each. So this is your main go-to burn card. If you have multiple Licorice on the field, you can hit for more and more burn damage against your opponent, and most of the time the card you want to bounce is your Candina, because then you can just re-normal summon out Candina onto the field again for another additional search, and keep doing so with one of the other spell combos we have in the deck. For the last of the 3 ofs, for the Trickstar monsters, I also run 3 Trickstar Korobane. If you control no monsters or all monsters you control are Trickstar, you can special summon this card from your hand, and during the damage step, when your Trickstar monster battles an opponent's monster, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. That monster you control gains attack equal to its original attack until the end of this turn. So it's more of a hand trap option for your Trickstars, giving you a monster resource on the field, but the big play with this card is just to be able to utilize it as a defensive card for the Trickstar monsters you already have set up on the field. With the last of the Trickstars being one Trickstar Lilybell. If this card is added to your hand, except by drawing it, you can special summon it to your hand from your hand. You can only use this effect of Lilybell once per turn, and it can attack directly. When it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target one Trickstar monster in your graveyard and add to your hand. Another way for you just to recycle some of your other Trickstars. And being searchable with cards like Light Stage, being able to add to your hand and special summon it means you just have that target option against your opponent to hit for some more damage. For the rest of the monsters that I run in the main deck, I run 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring and 3 Effect Veiler just as hand trap options, stopping monsters or searches for your opponent. I do run a pretty big hand trap option, but being more of the meta relevance, you want just the important Trickstars for all your plays, for the burn damage, search, you name it, with the last of the hand traps being 2 Droll and Lockbird. This could be a 3 of in the deck if you were to do so. You could just take out one of the Effect Veilers for a 3rd copy of this card, because with Droll and Lockbird and its search option, when you banish with your Trickstar Reincarnation and your opponent searched with the lock with Droll and Lockbird, your opponent will be able to add cards from their deck to the hand, giving them no cards in their hand thanks to the Reincarnation banish and the prior activation of Droll and Lockbird. And that's it for the main deck monsters. Moving on to the spells. Fresh at 2 off the ban list. I know it's been a while since the May 2022 ban list, but still love updating the deck. But 2 Trickstar Light Stage, a big part of the deck. When it's activated, you can add 1 Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand, and once per turn, you can target 1 set card in your opponent's spell and trap card zone while it is in the field zone. This set card cannot be activated until the end of the turn, and if your opponent must activate it during the end phase, or else send it to the graveyard. So if it's not relevant to activate at that point, they'll be missing out on that card. But the big play also comes for the fact that you can search out another Trickstar card, summoning out Candina, and vice versa with that search, just adding a Trickstar monster and Candina being able to add a Trickstar card. The other field spell I run is just the 1 Live Stage. This is more for late game, being able to recycle Trickstar monsters back from the graveyard if your opponent does get rid of the Light Stage. It's good to have just that additional option as a backup field spell until we do get the Light Stage back at 3 of full power. And for additional token option, I also run the 3 Trickstar Festival. You special summon 2 Trickstar tokens onto the field. Level 1, attack 0 and defense 0. If a Trickstar monster you control that was special summoned from the X deck would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead, and you cannot normal or special summon monsters the turn you activate this card, except for Trickstar monsters, which isn't really limited much in the deck since we do run a few Link monsters in the extra deck for your Trickstar plays, but being able just to get 2 Trickstar tokens onto the field to use as a resource, and then having an additional protection spell card in the graveyard is why I like running this spell. For the additional options for your play setup, I also run the 3 chain summoning. You activate this card as a chain link 3 or higher. You can conduct up to 3 normal summons or set this turn, not just one, and you can activate this card of multiple cards with the same name or effects of such cards that are already activated in the chain link. So with this play, you have the option to set up the multiple normal summons for your Trickstar Candina. When it's normal summon, add 1 Trickstar card from your deck to your hand. It's not a once per turn, so as long as you keep on searching the Licorice to bounce back the Candina, special summoning out the Licorice, normal summoning the Candina, gaining the additional search, you can set up the multiple Licorice on your field as long as you have that chain link of 3 set up thanks to this spell. For more draw power, and since the extra deck is not a big focus of the deck, I do run also 3 Pot of Extravagance, one of the easier cards to gain access to thanks to the Albaz structure deck. At the start of your main phase, banish 3 or 6 random face down cards from your extra deck, then draw 1 card for each 3 banished cards. And for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot draw any cards by card effects. Not really a big issue there. This deck is mostly search power, but you still like this additional draw thanks to the Pot of Extravagance. With the rest of the spell cards being 1 Call by the Grave, 1 Monster Reborn, and 1 Terraforming. Terraforming can search out any of the very important field spells that we run in the deck. Monster Reborn giving you a resource back from the graveyard onto the field, and Call by the Grave is pretty standard, just being able to shut down one of your opponent's graveyard plays or one of their hand traps that they'll try to use against you. And that is it for the spells. Moving on now to the traps. I run 3 Trickstar Reincarnation. You banish your opponent's entire hand, and if you do, they draw the same number of cards, and you can banish this card from your graveyard to target 1 Trickstar monster in your graveyard and special summon it. So what's great about Reincarnation is you have the setup for more of a defensive play even against your opponent. If it's in the graveyard, you can banish Reincarnation during your opponent's turn and summon out a Trickstar monster onto the field to at least have more burn options if they do try to wipe out all of your many different monsters you have on the field thanks to this card. It's a definite 3-of for that banish play, and once again working very, very well with the Droll and Lockbird to use this after your opponent gains the search, banish off of Reincarnation, then they can't add any cards to their hand. With the remainder of the traps being 3 infinite impermanents, this is just more shutdown, especially if your opponent goes first against you, stopping their monster by being able to activate this card from your hand. And the last trap being the 1 Metaverse. You take 1 field spell from either your deck and either add it to your hand or activate it. So with this, you have your field spell search or set option, giving you then the activation of your light stage, then being able to add a Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand, depending on which one you want to use. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. For the extra deck with the Pot of Extravagance play, we do have a pretty big number of the same number of cards for a good number of spots, but 2 Holly Angel. It's the easiest Trickstar to make use of, especially with our token play using Trickstar Festival. Having 2 Trickstar tokens, you can just make Holly Angel. Since you are locked into Trickstar plays with those cards, being able to summon this card out, each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone this card points to, inflict 200 damage to your opponent, and Trickstar monsters this card points to cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So they have to at least get through the Holly Angel, which could have been easily made with the Trickstar Festival spell card, and then you can keep the additional normal summon and special summon plays of your other Trickstars on the field to use. For more of the generic extra deck monsters, I also run 2 Hippo Shenangan for the light attribute. Majority of attribute monsters we use in the deck. It's a great recycle option. Same with the Lena the Light Charmer, and also 1 Herald of the Mirage Lights for the fairy monster plays and shutdown of our opponent's cards. 2 Nightmare Cerberus, once again, Extravagance will banish a good number of cards to at least keep some relevance for some of them, along with the 1 Nightmare Phoenix. And I also run 2 Link Karibos for the level 1 options. You are locked into the Trickstar plays on the turn you activate this, but if there's still 1 token remaining, it can be on the following turn, or the Effect Veiler alone in your hand to go for the Link Karibo play. Also the same premise for the 1 Relinquished Anima, except the token, so this one won't work with Festival, but still a option, and most of the time for the banished target for the Pot of Extravagance, hopefully, at least. And then the 1 Underclock Taker, the 1 Barricade Board Blocker, and the 1 Nightmare Unicorn. The big plays of the entire deck will be the burn damage that you do with your Trickstar monsters. These are just extra options to at least have available to you in case something does get banished, thanks to the Pot of Extravagance. As for some of the go-to plays, as I said, with the setup in the Chain Link 3, with your chain summoning out your Trickstar Candina, and then chaining with the quick effect of Licorice to its effect, activating the chain summoning in play will then give you the additional normal summon, so you'll bounce the Candina back to your hand, summon out the Licorice, having the additional summons, you will then go for the Candina search one more time, getting out the second Licorice, then bouncing it again for Licorice as well, and then the final normal summon, giving you one final Licorice to bounce back the Candina, having all 3 Licorice on the field, and then for the additional burn damage with this card each time for the play, each time a card is added to your opponent's hand, inflict 200 damage to them. So this will stack for 200 damage each, meaning 600 each time they add a card. And if you have the option of your Trickstar Reincarnation on the field as well, as the additional burn damage, being able to banish their entire hand of 6 and drawing 6 more additional cards along with the 3 on the field will just be immense more and more burn damage. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy. I always love updating Trickstars. This is the one time I went more for a more meta-relevant approach and not more of the link format option. But still, I may look towards that version in the near future as well, so look forward to it. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.